And that is what I really love when I see somebody that fights it and fights it and doesn't give up. It's the ones that give up are the ones that are lost. And then they cause more havoc for their families, for themselves, and more shame when they don't need to. They can walk in with their head high to say, I'm coming to get help because my deadly disease got me, but I'm coming back and I'm fighting it. I'm fighting it. The heat was turned up, but I want to see the light, and I want to turn the light up, and that's what recovery does.
Welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're listening, chances are you want to create happiness around you and thrive in your life. We're glad you're here and you've come to the right place. This podcast will inspire and motivate you to not merely survive your recovery journey. We'll give you the tools to build or strengthen your foundation to thrive and flourish in your life. In each episode, we will come together as a community to have authentic conversations around addiction, recovery, and what matters, growth and progress, not perfection, all while developing positive habits for you to utilize. To learn more, please visit positiverecovery.com/podcasts to sign up and to receive the daily positive interventions that we'll review, as well as gain access to exclusive positive recovery content available only to Positive Recovery MD listeners. All right, let's get started.
Hello, welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're new here, we're your hosts, Dr. Jason Powers, George Joseph, and we cover a variety of topics in the recovery space, such as positive psychology and best practices for a successful recovery journey, which takes us to the topic we are embracing today, which is what are the steps one can take to break the shame cycle in addiction? And operationally, I think it's important to sort of define, people confuse guilt and shame all the time, George. Guilt is like I've done something wrong, and shame is I am something wrong. And, addiction and shame, we know that they're so closely related because, quite frankly, nobody wants to have addiction. There's so much stigma against it. And so if you have it, you think, I'm no good. I'm never going to get better. There's a hit on the self-esteem. There's keeping quiet, fear of speaking out, asking for help, which then perpetuates the problem. And then a lot of times, we have to drink and drug in order to quiet the pain that comes from, hurting others and being out of integrity. So that's sort of, the umbrella, people that are walking around feeling that way, our hearts are out to you. We both know what it's like. What do you think some of the first steps are, or what comes up for you?
Well, I think it goes back to how do we break the stigma in society? And I think Betty Ford, in my lifetime, Betty Ford was one of the first to kind of break the ice, and it's had some celebrity to her. And now obviously we know a lot of celebrities that have gotten sober. But from the personal aspect, it's that feeling of being defeated. And I think what's so great about recovery is that once you allow others to share their experience, then you realize I'm not alone. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about helping someone is when you can share your own experience of being where they've been and then seeing the lights go off to say, how do you know me? Because you're a different person, but you're speaking my story. And it's because addiction, for the most part, is very similar in so many people's lives.
Oh, yeah, it's so true. I had all those symptoms of, I didn't want anybody to know. I was so ashamed. Yeah. And so I was sort of isolated in this prison. And then once I met other people in recovery, it was actually the first time I went to an AA meeting. And there was a room full of people that were all talking about me, and they'd never met me before. I broke down. I was crying and hugging people because that feeling of not being, so the thing is with addiction is that if it's a problem with the self, then I'm a wretch and there's nothing I can do about it. It's a disease. And so it's kind of external to me. There's something that can be done about it, right? I can seek help. I can manage it. And so I'm not broken, right? It's not impossible that I can get better. And you're absolutely right. Like other people are the best resource for recovery from anything, whether it's addiction or you have a heart bypass operation. Yeah. Doesn't matter. And that's so true, man. It can, accept that you are okay with the disease, like accept that you're a person with the disease. You were all fallible, right? And if, you have a disease, like accepting where you're at is the only way to sort of move forward. right? You're not broken. You got a disease that makes you think you are.
Yeah, it must be frustrating for you as a addiction physician to see the fight you have to get over the denial. Obviously, with other illnesses, when you get a diagnosis about other illnesses, most people say, "Okay, yes, what do we have to do? What's the medicine? What's our next steps?" With addiction, people want to avoid it, fight it, resist it. I don't have a problem. I only drink one. I only drink two. I mean, how many doctors that we know of that have been conned by alcoholics and addicts for years and years and years because you guys get so little education on addiction, which is frustrating to me as a human, that doctors are not more engaged in helping people get sober. You're a special case. I would think I don't know how many doctors are like you in the country, but they're not enough that can go and identify an alcoholic, set the boundary, help educate the family, and get them some help. Because we know once they go past that line to get help, there's a chance that their whole life can be turned around, but more importantly, their kids' lives, their family, the next kids' generation's lives. It's a ripple effect if we get one person sober. And so it just frustrates me about physicians that they kind of, oh yeah, you only drink one, but your liver's, elevated, your liver enzymes are elevated. You got to push a little harder because alcoholics are the one diagnosis that wants to fight it, wants to deny it, doesn't want to admit defeat because you feel like it's a willpower and a personal issue when it's really a disease. So that's the education I would love to see us get more of, is how to educate the community to know that it's a disease up there with cancer and everything else, epilepsy. I told a guy once he didn't want to go to treatment because his employees would look down on him. He's owned his own company. And I said to him, well, if you had to go to MD Anderson, what would they do? Oh, they would rally around. They would work hard. They would do all these great things and, just really support me. And what would they do if they go to treatment? If you go to treatment and they found out it's drug and alcohol, they wouldn't do their work. They would be, talking about me behind the back, all these things that could be true, but it's what's in alcoholics' minds.
Yeah, it's the expectation. Like I thought my life was over once I was intervened on. I'm like, okay, I give, but I thought that meant you're done. You're done as a doctor. You're done as a person. Like nobody's going to talk to you. I was taught growing up in the United States medical establishment, taught by some really phenomenally smart and great and good-hearted physicians that, addiction's a choice, that alcoholics have a Librium deficiency. They just needed enough medicine so they can go back on their bar stool. And every other disease is identified by primary care and, kind of siphoned off to the right specialist or treated. But addiction, who identifies us and siphons us off? The legal system.
Yeah.
And, cops in emergency rooms.
Yeah.
Which is, we don't take, diabetes to the judges. Why? We're showing up with that. And that's the piece of I don't think we're going to change culture very easily because, in our lifetimes, we've seen so many, breakthroughs and advancements. And now, addiction medicine is a board, but, it's still, I don't know how much progress we're going to make. And I just hope the individual listening to this knows you're not alone, knows you're not broken. And yeah, reaching out is tough, but there's so many people that have the disease you have that it's sort of boring, right? Like it's normal.
I always say that people get sober because they either see the light or they feel the heat. And what's the sad part is that alcoholics' tolerance of heat continues to ramp up. So you almost got a fire. You got to set a fire somebody to get over that hump. But once they get to the hump, they see the light by seeing all the people in recovery doing the good deal. And then the next obstacle is once you start feeling good about being sober and being around other people, your mind starts telling you this trick. Oh, I can do it on my own. I don't need I don't need all the things that got me here. I can do it by myself. And then they slide back. So it's an amazing, complicated, and difficult disease that's simple in some ways because it's the surrender, it's the spiritual progress, it's all those things, but it's the continued effort and the discipline that alcoholics obviously, are not best at. And so we have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and encouraging till they kind of get over the hump and start to be motivated, and then they start helping others. And that's the magic of recovery to me, is that you get to a certain point where you're feeling great, and then you realize, I can do it on my own, or I can move on. But if you stay long enough and start helping others, then it ties you back to the first step, which is obviously admitting you're powerless. And so it's like, oh, I remember being there now, so I got to help this guy. And then hopefully that guy will help the next guy. And then you see that, and it's such a great feeling of seeing that legacy of your recovery making a difference in other people's lives, and then hopefully in your family's lives.
Yeah, that's well said. And I'm not sure if there's a good transition or we just switch gears, but this kind of the second topic of shame I thought might be helpful to cover is, the shame of somebody who is, dealing with being in recovery, but relapsing. And I'm pretty sure I could speak for both of us that we haven't relapsed since. Okay. Right. But I was thinking about it, like, how can I relate to? I mean, obviously, you've been sober longer forever. And, I've been in this field for a long time. You've been in the field for a long time. But I remember when I was trying to quit, I tried to quit so many times that I understand the frustration of, like, about a year or two before my intervention, I told my wife about I was like, I started taking, prescription medicine. At first it was like giving me energy and helping me, and I was happier, but now I can't stop. And so I tried to do it at home. I do with no help, and it was a bad thing. And so I just was tired of feeling so wretched and not being able to function, that I started taking it, and then I had to hide it from her. And that was that made it worse. So not that I relapsed, but I can identify, I could sort of empathize with people who have recovery first, and they might be, working with others and doing all those things. And then something happens, you make a choice. Okay, nobody's perfect, but getting back in, there's that extra shame layer of ego. And I don't want to, George, you're my sponsor, I don't want to let you down. Yeah. And I don't want somebody to come in and listen to that and then think I relapsed. So I was just role playing everybody.
Yeah, no, how many illnesses that you know of that people have relapsed their own other illnesses, and it's no big shame. It's just like, hey, all right, let's get some more medicine or whatever. It's like, how many they say, I don't know what the stats are, but people don't finish their prescriptions. They stop their prescriptions, and then they may relapse or get a what do you call it, remission, and the remission ends or whatever. You could see that from a physician standpoint.
Right.
Same thing for recovery. If you don't do the tools, and you'll relapse, but does it mean go away? No, it means come back.
Yeah. We don't shoot our wounded,
yes.
No matter what circle you're talking about it, you're absolutely right. But that internal battle, it really is a case of sort of love yourself for being imperfect, accept that it happened, and realize that there's still people that want to have a hand out to you. It's not like we develop alligator hands if you relapse. I love that.
Get your desire chip, baby.
There was a pivotal study that looked at managing chronic diseases, high blood pressure and diabetes, asthma, and addiction. And they found that, treatment is equally effective, but more patients with addiction are compliant with their medication than those that aren't. Yeah, when somebody's treated for diabetes and they go to the doctor, life can be unmanageable with diabetes. Your sugar's high. You could be peeing all the time. Your vision could be off. You could be dizzy, thirsty, sick. It's pretty bad. And then you go to a doctor, medical intervention. They identify it. They give you some education. You're on some medicine. They give you lifestyle changes. Boom. Everything's going great. Nobody expects you to never see the doctor again. And if your blood pressure goes up, as it does 100% of the time, there's no perfect control of diabetes or other diseases from their first episode of treatment. But when there is high blood sugar or a relapse of that disease management, nobody thinks, man, that treatment should have been curative. Everybody expects one treatment for addiction, chronic disease, to be curative. But, you go back to the doctor, you make course corrections. And the thing about addictions, like every other disease, the more times you get treated, the better your chances of good long-term recovery. It doesn't mean that, well, I've already been a couple times and so be it. Don't give up.
Yeah, I love that. We talk about the one-chip wonders. Yeah, there are people that come into recovery and stay sober and for the rest of their lives. But there's a large percentage of people that relapse. And what's scary is that they're afraid to come back because of that shame. And what's so exciting is when they do come back, and pick up what we call a desire chip to show their commitment to recovery. And they get sober. They are such a great testimony to the others that have relapsed. And that is what I really love when I see somebody that fights it and doesn't give up. It's the ones that give up are the ones that are lost. And then they cause more havoc for their families, for themselves, and more shame when they don't need to. They can walk in with their head high to say, I'm coming to get help because my deadly disease got me, but I'm coming back and I'm fighting it. The heat was turned up, but I want to see the light, and I want to turn the light up, and that's what recovery does.
Yeah, perfect. A lot of times I hear people who relapse say, I just want to get back to, and there's no going back. Like, it's time to find a new site. Because if you're trying to go back, you're looking in your past. Meanwhile, the world's going this way. So, look, listen, growth is not lost.
Yes.
And you're still a more complex person than when you started the journey, even if you've relapsed. Like, there's gains that don't go away. Yeah, continuous length of sobriety has gone away, but people forget all the growth or the good qualities about themselves. And I think it's important to remind somebody not to lose sight of that, because, you're going to see a new light, or you're going to see the light in a new way, and you're going to help people in a new way, and you're going to have a newer, better, like, who's to say?
Yeah, that's what I love about one day at a time. It's like you could have 100 years sober and you could have 2 weeks sober, but the 2-week guy could have just as good a quality of life as the guy with long-term sobriety if they're not spiritually fit. And so it's about the 24 hours. I love that. You don't lose what you lost. You don't lose what you think you lost. You still got the tools, but you're on the present. You're going to look forward, not backwards.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, I think that's a good topic.
Do you have any call to action?
I think a call to action is this. I like what I said about the heat and the light.
Yeah, that was good.
How much heat do you really want? And come forward so you can see the light. And then when the light gets dim, this means not to stop, but to refocus.
Yeah, one of our current patients told me about, he was struggling with staying. He was like, I'm only here for detox. I'm okay. So I talked to him every day, and he came up with this metaphor, which was great, because you were talking about, you either see the light or you feel the heat. And he said, my life has been like boiling a frog, right? Like, I started drinking, things weren't so bad. The temperature was normal. And then as it turned up, all of a sudden it was boiling, and I didn't even realize it was hot.
Yeah. That's disease, man. That's a great metaphor.
I know. I was like, man, I never heard that before. That's wonderful. And he's like, I'm going to stay so I can throw some more wisdom at you.
That's good. Whatever it takes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, thanks for joining us. And you're not alone. If you or somebody else, has an issue, please get help, because the treatment's effective. Until next time, take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Positive Recovery MD. Don't forget to visit positiverecovery.com/podcast to sign up to get your daily positive interventions sent straight to your inbox. Be sure to subscribe to Positive Recovery MD on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts to receive an automatic download when a new episode drops. And as always, if you or someone you know needs help, visit positiverecovery.com or call 877-4-SOBRIETY. That's 877-476-2743. Our why is simple. We care. We are here to help.